This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
What a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig on Game Night on Game Day for the 76ers Game 2 on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, and we are live in the Matt Black Kia Studios on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can watch the Sports Bash with Mike Gill. Josh Hennig here on Game Night and more right here on 97.3 ESPN. We'll be previewing the whole Sixers game coming up at 6:20 with Paul Hudrick, our Sixers Insider for 97.3 ESPN.com. And, of course, we always love to hear from you guys. Text board is open at 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. And if you're watching on the stream, you can comment on the stream. If you want to watch the stream, you can follow 97.3 ESPN on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I'll give you my perspective on what I think the Sixers need to do differently tonight in order to be successful. Before we get to the Sixers specifically, we got to talk about last night, because last night you saw what can go wrong for a team. You saw very vividly what goes wrong when you do not have the right players in place. Now, I'm not discounting Kevin Durant being one of the three best players on planet Earth and playing like just an insane freak of nature. I mean, he had a couple moves last night that you just had to rewatch and just to appreciate them. Kyrie was on fire. I mean, Joe Harris, for goodness sake. Bruce Brown. Even Blake pulled out a nice dunk last night. I mean, the Nets were just demolishing the Bucks. They went hunting and they came back with venison for the whole family. It was ridiculous. But the problem last night was the Bucks. And I got to admit, and I know I'm not alone, okay? I'm not alone in this. I get that. But I was never more wrong about a team than I was about the Bucks. I genuinely thought that what I saw from this team during the regular season was going to translate in the postseason. The fact that there were numerous games that they did not depend solely on Giannis. They were so focused last night on Giannis to bail them out on multiple possessions. They lacked movement. They lacked basketball IQ. Middleton, Drew Holiday, Brook Lopez, and the entire supporting cast just faded away. Now, I'm not denying that the Bucks can't go home and win a couple games at home, and role players play a lot better at home, and so on and so forth. But you have two guys who have been all-stars in this league, in Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton. And you didn't put up enough of an effort to not be embarrassed. And you left your two-time MVP out there on an island by himself. I felt bad for Giannis. And you see the reason why he's the league MVP twice already. Because the V stands for valuable. You take him off of that franchise, not the team, out of the franchise, they are going to the lottery every single year. The problem is that as of this moment in time, Giannis cannot single-handedly carry this team past a certain point. And you know what? The Nets exposed them 2 straight games now. And they didn't even need James Harden to do it. And I'm watching that game and I'm thinking, you know what? The Nets might have had a blessing in disguise this year, having all those games without Durant and Kyrie. Because all of those bench players got significant playing time, significant minutes on the court with each of the star players. And now they're the playoffs, and it's not that unfamiliar to them. And that's the exact reason why I still have confidence in the 76ers to win this series versus the Hawks. I have confidence in the 76ers because Joel Embiid missed a bunch of games this year. And that's the reason why he's not the league MVP and Nikola Jokic was handed that trophy today. Ben Simmons missed time due to COVID protocols. Tobias Harris missed time due to COVID protocols and a minor injury. So you have multiple people who have missed time because of either injury or COVID protocol. And like the Nets, these bench players had to get playing time this year. And I think there's something to be said for the fact that your supporting cast has to be able to step up in clutch moments. You know, Michael Jordan didn't make every game-winning shot. He passed it to Paxson. He passed it to Kerr. He passed it to Pippen. He had to pass the ball to B.J. Armstrong. He had to pass the basketball. And the problem for Giannis is every time he passed the basketball, it became a game of hot potato. Every guy said, I don't want it. I don't want it. And dumbfounded Budenholzer, who's going to get fired at the end of this series when the Bucks finally officially lose, he's on his way out of town because he looks like he's just as confused and lost as anybody on the court. Your coach can't look that dazed and confused and keep his job. I mean, even Brett Brown had more life in his face when the Sixers were losing to the Celtics in the bubble than Budenholzer had last night. I mean, Budenholzer looks like he was just recycling nightmares while watching the game, knowing that his job is on the line. The Nets have these players who were forced to play games, and so do the Sixers. I think Sunday's game was a byproduct of these guys going through what we refer to in the fight game as an adrenaline dump. You ever watch a fighter come out, whether it's a UFC fight or a boxing match, and they come out to the ring or the octagon and they're overhyped and they're overexcited and they are just going crazy. And then the fight starts, and about a minute or two in, they just run out of gas, physically and mentally. It's almost like Embiid and the Sixers got so hyped by the crowd and by Triple H being there, they just ran out of juice for a little bit there. And all I'm thinking is, you know what? If they just would have played better in the first quarter. So when we watch the game, I'm thinking, if this Sixers team doesn't have 9 turnovers in the first quarter, and they don't allow the Hawks get all those 3-pointers off so easily, they might have won the game outright. They would have been down 20-plus points multiple times in that game. This is not a bad Sixers team, but this is also not a bad Hawks team. That's why I said from the beginning, I think this is going to be a 7-game series. I think the Sixers can win this series, but it comes down to 2 things. And I'll tell you that in just a moment here. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. The text board is open at 609-403-0973 to get on the conversation. We also live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can watch the show and comment. I see people commenting on from Facebook, from YouTube. We'll get to your guys' comments here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN, as well as text board at 609-403-0973 for all of you listening on 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. So how do the Sixers fix the problem? It comes down to, for me, 2 things. One, Mike Gill mentioned this on the Sports Bash. That Tyrese Maxey and a couple other players have mentioned they got away from the game plan. I mentioned this on Twitter to a buddy of mine who decided he wanted to have a Twitter conversation with me instead of a text conversation. But anyway, What's up, Joe? Hope you're listening. Thanks for listening if you are. I was saying to him, we make assumptions about the players and about coaches all the time. Are we really sure that a coaching staff that has Doc Rivers, Sam Cassell, Dave Yeager, and Dan Burke didn't have the Sixers prepared properly for the game? Didn't have the right game plan in place? Or was the problem the players just didn't get the job done and completely choked for about 12, 15 minutes of the game? I tend to think it's the latter. And because I think it's the latter, I think it comes down to the reality that the Sixers have to start the game getting back to basics. The players got to make a fundamental choice and concerted effort to play good defense. I don't need you to shut down Trae Young. I need you to go out there and play fundamental defense. Coach Jim Lynam was on the Sports Bash earlier today. This is what he had to say.
Oh, it's nonsense about he did this to Danny Green. Yeah, it's not about football, Jim. And I'll give you, Simmons is a better defender than Danny Green. Matisse Thybulle is. That's not the issue. If Mike Gill set the pick on Ben Simmons, who's guarding Trae Young, you ready? Trae Young is loose. It's not about Ben Simmons at that point. It's about who helps Ben Simmons. That's the whole design pick and roll defense. What are you willing to do to get this ball out of this kid's hand?
What are you willing to do? I love that he said that today. Because what Jim Lynam, a former NBA head coach, is saying, which is the same thing that Kobe Bryant, in his final detail for ESPN Plus, said about the 76ers. What are the players willing to do in order to win the game? At the end of the game, at the end of a half, at the end of a quarter, in the pivotal moments of the game, Doc Rivers isn't on the court. What are the players willing to do to win this basketball game tonight? You got to have want to in life. You got to want it. And if you don't want it and you just go through life sleepwalking, you're going to lose every time. That's what happened with the Bucks last night. Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, they just sleptwalked through that game. The Sixers have to wake up for this game. How bad do they want it? If they want it bad enough, I promise you they will win this game tonight. If they play the defense, if they stick to their assignments, if they follow the game plan of the scouts and the coaches told them, Doc Rivers won a championship as a head coach, should have won 2 if Kendrick Perkins didn't get injured, and they end up losing that game 7 to Lakers. Sam Cassell won rings as a player. Dave Yeager is considered one of the smartest X and O coaches in the entire league. And then you have Dan Burke, who's considered one of the best defensive strategists in the league. At some point, Simmons, Embiid, Danny Green, Dwight Howard, Seth Curry, Tobias Harris, fill in the blank. The players got to step up. Because if they don't, it doesn't matter who the coach is. Phil Jackson, Larry Brown, name the coach that you like or think is great. If he's on that sideline and the players don't execute, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, as The Rock would say, what your name is. What matters is you got to do the job. And if you don't do the job, you will lose. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM. I got a ton of comments to get to. Kyle, I saw the one comment you brought up. I love that you brought that up. I am going to hit that comment a little bit later in the show. I see comments from Chris, from Rodney. I love some of these comments that are on the stream over here. I'm going to get to all these comments coming up a little bit later in the show. But first, before we get to your comments, as we do each and every game that we get our guest next segment, that is going to be Paul Hudrick, our Sixers Insider for 97.3 ESPN.com, with the latest on Game 2 coming up next here on Game Night with yours truly, Josh Hennig, on 97.3 ESPN FM, and hopefully the 97.3 ESPN mobile app for all of your Eagles, Sixers, Phillies, Flyers coverage, all on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free, thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle City.
The NBA playoffs continue.
6 to shoot, 7 to go. Durant, top of the arc for 3. Ripped it!
Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and the Nets win games 1 and 2 at home in Brooklyn. Now the series shifts to Milwaukee, where Giannis and the Bucks face a critical Game 3.
They just have to play a lot better on the defensive end. We'll get some transition baskets. It'll get them some better looks at 3.
Coverage begins Thursday at 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio.
The NBA playoffs, exclusively on 97.3 ESPN FM.
Would you like to work for a company that is making a difference? Be a part of the team that keeps our communities clean. The Atlantic County Utilities Authority, ACUA, is now hiring CDL drivers and laborers to join its collection team. There are many opportunities for growth, and full-time employees receive competitive health benefits, membership into the Public Employees Retirement System, paid vacation, and more. Apply online at acua.com/careers. That's acua.com/careers.
You asked for it. You got it. Fast Track Checkout at either Matt Blatt Kia location. Buy it your way. Complete your purchase online or have us deliver it during the Trade Up to a Kia sales event at Matt Blatt Kia in Egg Harbor Township or Tom's River. 0 money down and 0% financing for up to 60 months on every 2021 Kia Soul, Sportage, or Forte. Plus, we need your trade, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Get out of that old car you hate with 0 down payment and 0% APR financing available for up to 60 months. Try Fast Track Checkout. Purchase completely online and have us deliver right to your home or office. Only at Matt Blatt Kia, where you can't make a mistake with our 4-day love it or leave it return policy.
It's gotta be a Matt Blatt Kia.
Offers with approved Tier 1 and 2 credit through Kia Motors Finance. Not all will qualify. 0% based on 1667 per 1,000 borrowed. Negative equity financed into new loan. Go to mattblattkianj.com for complete details. Expires 7/6/2021. Matt Blatt Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township. And now on Route 37 in Toms River.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night. A little bit extra fired up here on 97.3 ESPN. Sixers Game 2 tonight. Hear all the action right here on 97.3 ESPN. Coverage begins coming up at 7:30 tonight. So to get more details about the game, joining us live right here on the Boardwalk kind of hotline here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. It is the one and only Sixers Insider Paul Hudrick from 97.3 ESPN.com, joining us live here from the center with a, now what is that, a Philadelphia, with a bell on your mask? Paul, can you hear me?
Yep, sorry about that, Josh. I'm flustered for a second there. You hear me?
Yeah, we got you. I was just asking, what is that? Is that the Philadelphia bell on your mask?
Say it again. I'm sorry, dude. It's so loud here. I apologize. Say it one more time.
I was just saying, is that the bell on your mask?
It's the Wu-Tang, man.
Oh, Wu-Tang. Okay, well here's the problem. It's on the angle. So, like, I'm trying to turn my and see it. So I don't want you to get and have to turn it the right way. So, well, let's start with what you just said. You said it's loud over there, Paul. So I got to ask you, what is the vibe up there? What is the environment like up there?
Well, right now it's still pretty. It's loud just because of the arena music, but no fans really yet. But listen, Game 1, man, it was nuts in here, especially as they made that comeback. You could tell. Things went south obviously early, but you could tell this crowd wanted to get into it. You know what I mean? They did not want to have to boo when they did, but it was just such a lackluster early performance. It was almost they had no choice but to. But you could just tell the whole game, they were just on the edge of their seat, wanting to get excited. And then as they made that comeback, man, it was deafeningly loud in here. Obviously, that Triple H intro bell ringing definitely got some people excited as well. That was pretty insane. But unfortunately, the game they didn't carry it over into the game. But yeah, I'm expecting it to be more of the same tonight, man. I mean, this is a game, they really don't want to go down 0-2. So I imagine tonight the crowd's going to be just as crazy as it was in the fourth quarter on Sunday.
It's part of one of my questions. I started wondering this last night, Paul, and I wanted to throw this to you. Was it almost like an adrenaline dump for the Sixers at the beginning of the game? Like, you got all this hype. Triple H is there, and Embiid's doing the X drop. The crowd's going nuts. And it was like the players started playing the game, and they were just immediately burned out because it almost seemed like they were. It was like Space Jam, and the bodies were snapped, kind of thing going on in that first quarter.
I almost look at it more like think back to the first round, Josh, and it was like it almost felt like they all felt like regular season games. Like they didn't have that playoff intensity because the Sixers were just such a better team than the Wizards. And I just don't think they really ever had to really ramp it up in order to win games in that series. And I think against this Atlanta team, which is a much better team than that Wizards team, and then also they just played, they did take care of business against the Knicks in 5 games, but those games were just much more intense. I thought they almost come in more not battle tested, that's not the word I'm looking for, but they just looked like they were already in the fight, whereas the Sixers, I think it took them a quarter or two to really get in the fight. And, we've heard Ben Simmons say it, we heard Doc Rivers say it. The Hawks punched them in the mouth, and they just didn't recover. They did not find their way into that game until it was too late. And, give them credit because they still almost managed to pull it out. But I think I would expect you see a much more focused start, a much better start in Game 2 than you did in Game 1.
So that leads me to, so I'm having an argument with a buddy of mine who decides he wants to argue on Twitter instead of on text message. The guy went to high school with me, okay? But anyway, he's trying to tell me that the problem was the coaching, okay? And I believe that at some point we got to stop blaming the coaches. And if you have 9 turnovers and you play sloppy defense and you're allowing all those threes, at some point the players got to be responsible. So where do you stand on this, where the responsibility falls to the players versus when it falls on the coach's situation?
Well, I'll preface it by saying I don't think it was the best game that Doc Rivers has coached as Sixers head coach, quite frankly. I'm still not really sure his fascination with these all-bench lineups. which, they really, that all bench unit really struggled in the second quarter. I think, most of those guys were like minus 14, minus 15 in that range. The Hawks went on a 17-0 run. If that doesn't happen, perhaps the lead at halftime is, 10 to 12 as opposed to 20, and that makes it a lot more manageable in the second half. And I thought it was weird that, before the series started, Doc had mentioned, with Trae Young, I want to show him a lot of coverages, and I want to show him a lot of different matchups. And I don't think we really saw that at all through the first three quarters. I don't think they really changed much up until the fourth quarter, and that's where they had a little bit more success. So I will say that I don't think it was the best game that Doc coached, but at the same time, as you pointed out, Josh, 9 turnovers. That's not on Doc Rivers. That's on the players. That's a lack of focus, and that's them just being careless and not taking care of the basketball. And then, just a lot of other things. As far as those coverages go, Doc even talked about that, the fact that maybe some guys weren't as disciplined as they could have been. Some guys kind of, not fulfilling their assignments, not helping, not doing the proper things to try to mitigate Trae Young's impact. So, I think we kind of do this weird thing where we try to blame it on one thing, but it's not one thing. Sure, Doc Rivers could have done some things differently that I think could have helped, but at the same time, his players were not ready to play that game. They did not look very good in the onset, and they didn't have their best game.
Paul Hudrick, our Sixers Insider for 97.3 ESPN.com, joining us here on the Boardwalk on the hotline here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Sixers Hawks Game 2 coming up at 7:30 right here on 97.3 ESPN. Tom McGinnis on the call. So, Paul, if you had to, let's say you got to walk into the coaches' meeting, okay? COVID protocols be damned. You just got the chance to walk down the hallway and you wanted the coaches' meeting. And Doc Rivers turned around and he was like, all right, Paul, you think you're so smart. What do you think we need to change for Game 2? What would you tell him?
The biggest adjustment, I think, is in the coverage, and I think Doc already knows that. You saw what they did more in the fourth quarter, and I think the goal is, as tough as it is, and as much as Atlanta is a better basketball team, as I mentioned, than the Wizards are, the goal has to be to get the ball out of Trae Young's hands, flat out. That's what you got to try to do. It's much easier said than done, but you saw they did that more. Finding him further out from the rim, I know a lot of people were mad. They saw Ben Simmons, he committed a foul 40 feet away from the basket. Well, the unfortunate thing is you can't let Trae Young, set up his offense and run things and then pick and roll so close to the three-point line. You need to push him further out, give him less time and space, and give your defense more time and space to kind of collapse and rotate and help on certain plays. So I think the biggest thing is, and I think Doc Rivers is already all over it. I don't need to tell him. He's already all over it. It's that you need to try to take the ball out of Trae Young's hands, force the other players on the Hawks team to beat you. Now, granted, they can. They have very good, Bogdan Bogdanovic is not scared of this situation, nor is a guy like Will Williams or Kevin Huerter. I mean, they have good players. So it's much easier said than done. But if I'm the Sixers, I feel much better if Bogdan Bogdanovic scores 40 points, I can live with that, as opposed to, letting a guy like Trae Young, who I know is so special, just do the same thing over and over again.
Now, it's funny you mentioned that, Paul, because that kind of gets back to a conversation we've been having for the last, at least I've been having for the last 36 hours, which is, so you're saying, take the ball out of Trae's hands. Don't let him beat you. But I would also say that you're saying they have good players, but how good is Bogdanovic, Collins, Huerter, and others if Trae Young isn't setting them up to be successful?
No, that's a huge part of it. Trae is what makes this team tick. Absolutely. I mean, there's a reason. I mean, he's special. As far as offensive players in the league, he's one of the best. I mean, flat out. I mean, because it's not, as you're talking about, it's not just his ability to score or pull up from 35 feet away from the basket. He's an outstanding passer, and he's just so patient, and he's so good at getting into the paint and finding guys. And it's not an easy thing to do. And you're right. That's part of what makes this Hawks team so great, and that's part of what makes those other guys so good. But at the same time, when those guys got open looks on Sunday, they knocked them down, and they did their job. So it's not an easy challenge for the Sixers, but yeah, I mean it all starts with Trae Young. He is the head of the state, so that's why that is your number one assignment, is to get the ball out of his hands and force someone else to create those opportunities.
Game Night here on 97.3 ESPN. Paul Hudrick joining us on the Boardwalk kind of hotline live from the center as the Sixers are about an hour away from tip-off of the game. Paul, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. I want to bring up a comment from one of the listeners. I want to get your feedback. I'm going to leave it completely open-ended for you. Kyle, who's been very active on the chat over here, because if you put Thibault on Trae Young, it frees up Ben to be the beast that he is. Is it that simple in your mind?
No, because listen, I think one of the concerns Doc Rivers has, and rightfully so, with initially with putting Ben on Trae Young, is the fouls. With Matisse Thybulle, the concern is the same. Thybulle has gotten much better at being more disciplined and not picking up as many fouls, but against a guy like Young, who that's what he does. I mean, that's a big part of his game is coaxing the defense into doing things and drawing that contact and getting calls to go his way. So I think that's the same issue that Thybulle will face. It is the fouls. And listen, I still think it's more about if it were up to Doc Rivers, I think Ben Simmons would cover Trae Young for every second of the game, but that's not realistic with all the factors I just mentioned. So it is a team effort. Like it or not, Danny Green's going to see time on Trae Young again. Ben Simmons is going to see time on Trae Young. Matisse Thybulle is going to see time on him. You can't just put one guy on him. It's got to be different looks. It's got to be different coverages. You got to mix it up. So I do expect Matisse Thybulle to see more of him in Game 2, but I also expect Ben Simmons to see more of him in Game 2, and I still think you'll see Danny Green on him some.
Now, was there something on the flip side? We've been talking a lot about the Sixers. Let's hit on the Hawks for a minute. What was it the Hawks did that you thought was the biggest, obviously aside from Trae Young having a big game, but was there something that the Hawks were running offensively or defensively that you looked at Game 1 and said, the Sixers can't let them do that in Game 2?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's all going to, offensively, it's all going to come back to Trae Young. And you can't let Trae Young get to the middle of the floor and get to the paint and let him facilitate or get to the rim or get to that little floater. That's the biggest thing, is keeping him out of the paint. That's the biggest thing offensively. And so defensively, early on, the Sixers, again, when we contrast the Wizards and the Hawks are a much bigger team, a much more physical team, and just a flat-out better defensive team, a better, more disciplined defensive team. So I thought the Sixers maybe weren't quite ready for that challenge early on. I do expect, as the game went on, I thought they were better in that regard. And they weren't bad offensively, really, the Sixers. I mean, offense wasn't the issue on Sunday. They scored 24 points. So offense wasn't necessarily the problem. So, but I do expect from the jump, I think they're going to get off to a better start. I think they'll take better care of the basketball, and I think they'll be more ready for Atlanta's size and their aggressiveness defensively.
Paul, if the Sixers win Game 2 tonight, when you write the article later tonight for 97.3 ESPN.com, it will be because of what?
Because they did a much better job containing Trae Young, flat out. You're not going to stop him completely because he's just so talented, but you can contain him. You can mitigate his impact on the entire game. And I also think another thing, Josh, is, and we've heard them hit at it a little bit, is you got to make sure Young works a little bit on the other end of the floor. He's not a strong defender. He's undersized. You got to run him through some screens. You got to make him try to run around a little bit, get some switches, try to get some more favorable matchups. I think those are the two. It all, to me, revolves around Trae Young. You need to mitigate his impact on offense, and you need to make him work on defense.
He's Paul Hudrick, our Sixers Insider for 97.3 ESPN.com, live at the center as the Sixers play the Hawks tonight. Game 2 of their series. Hear all the action. Tom McGinnis on the call at 7:30 on 97.3 ESPN. At Paul Hudrick on Twitter for all your Sixers and NBA coverage. Check out all his work, post-game, pre-game, all week long at 97.3 ESPN.com. Paul, great stuff. Appreciate you jumping on live from the center tonight.
You got it, Josh. Anytime, man.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. We're going to get to your guys' thoughts and comments. I got a ton of comments to get to on the stream as we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I got text to get to at 609-403-0973 as we get to your thoughts and comments as we continue to prepare you for Game 2. Sixers Hawks tonight at 7:30. We are ramping you all the way up. Game night till 7. Then you get to hear from Michael Caskey-Blamain, the coach, Jim Lyon and Dr. Mike Gill today, leading you up to Tom McGinnis on the call at 7:30 right here on your home for Sixers basketball, the NBA Finals, the World Series, Eagles football, Flyers hockey, Monday night, Sunday night, Thursday football. Your home is right here on 97.3 ESPN FM.
It's Sixers playoff basketball tonight on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McInnes, calling all the exciting Sixers playoff action.
He got the rebound and he puts it in, and he was fouled by Capella.
It's Sixers Hawks Game 2 tonight. Coverage begins at 7:30. Philadelphia 76ers playoff basketball on your radio home of the Sixers in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN FM.
MattBlattNissan.com. Help us celebrate when you get out of that old car, truck, or SUV and into a brand new Nissan with the Matt Blatt Nissan Fast Track Checkout. Available online at MattBlattNissan.com. Our non-touch delivery and electronic paperwork ensures your safety comes first. Plus, Matt Blatt Nissan wants your trade. Bring it in today and help us celebrate the all-new Matt Blatt Nissan on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township, or visit us online, MattBlattNissan.com.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM. 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter where you can watch the show on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, we are live in the Matt Black Kia Studios. Matt Black Kia, they want to get you approved today. Matt Black Kia on the Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township. Visit them online at mattblackkia.com. We'll get to your thoughts and comments here in just a moment. Of course, text board is open as always, 609-403-0973. Also, we'll get to all the comments, a ton of comments to get to on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I want to first remind you guys of my friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Of course, you want to get in on all of the basketball action with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether you're a new or existing user, same game parlay insurance during the NBA playoffs is still going on. If you bet on the same game parlay during the NBA playoffs, you get up to $10 back on your bet. That's right. Same game parlay insurance, all NBA playoffs long. So, for example, if you're looking at the Clippers Jazz game tonight and you're like, I don't understand why the Clippers are a +3, which I actually don't. I think it's a little bit ridiculous. But anyway, here's what you do. If you think the Clippers are going to win the game tonight, you jump on your FanDuel Sportsbook app. If you're new, sign with promo code Hennig to get on all the action. If you're a current user, you jump on the app and you create a same game parlay just like this. Kawhi Leonard, +25 points. Clippers money line to win. Combine those two bets with one more. And that one more bet, because it just kind of makes sense, especially for the value. We know that Rudy Gobert is going to do his thing, right? Rudy Gobert always is out there getting rebounds, doing his thing. It's just what he's a rebounding machine. So you combine Rudy Gobert at 12 or more rebounds. So Kawhi Leonard, 25 or more points. Rudy Gobert, 12 or more rebounds. Clippers money line to win. That's +283 odds. In other words, $10 will win you $28. Again, that's with FanDuel Sportsbook for same game parlay insurance. All NBA playoffs long, up to $10 back on your bet each and every night of the NBA playoffs. Must be 21 or to play and present in New Jersey or PA. Of course, real money wager is attributed back as site credit that expires in 7 days. For full terms and conditions, go to sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right. We got a lot of comments to get to, so here's what we're going to do. We're just going to go in the order that they came in. So this is going to be completely indiscriminate. I'm getting to all of you as the comments come in. Chris on Facebook says, I think the Sixers win by 25 tonight. Chris, if you really believe that, I think you need to throw some money on it. I don't think they win by that much. Couple other comments here. Chris also followed up about the, mentioned the Bulls and all the supporting cast. Rodman, Ron Harper, Tuna Kukoc, Pippen, Kerr. Here's the thing, and the reason why I bring up the supporting cast of a team is because you can't name a team where one guy won it by himself in the last 30 years. Jordan never won without Pippen. Pippen never won without Jordan. Shaq never won without Kobe or Dwayne Wade. Kobe never won without Shaq and Pau Gasol. It's just the way it is. And I think that a lot of times we look at NBA teams and we make assumptions about who they can and can't beat. Couple more comments coming in here. We have Joey D and Ventnor chiming in on the text board at 609-403-0973. Says 609-403-0973 says, Josh, do you think the refs will allow the players to play more physical playoff style of basketball, more physicality, less ticky-tack fouls? Here's the problem. Scott Foster is one of the refs tonight, and he has a history of calling ticky-tack fouls and wanting to strongly judiciate the game. So I will assume that you're going to see a close called game like you saw in game 1. I would like to see them more physical. I think it would be more beneficial to not call as many ticky-tack fouls, but the league is about protecting the offensive players. The league doesn't want roughhouse basketball. They want a more pure style of basketball. So that's why these games are called the way they are. We may not like it, but it is part of the thing. And with guys like Scott Foster out there, I think you're going to see maybe a closer called game than you really want to at the end of the day. To get to some more of you, 609-403-0973 is text where we also live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. A couple of comments came in because I was getting in the Doc Rivers and everything. I want to get to some of these comments. And Kyle, who's been very active on the comment stream, he believes Doc Rivers is overrated. And whenever I see somebody say a coach is overrated, one of my problems is that we have a system where we claim that somebody is overrated or underrated, and it's not objective a lot of times. Using words like overrated and underrated is an inference that you already have subjectivity on the matter. Now, Kyle goes on to explain his opinion, but Rodney was as a follow-up, and I think Rodney kind of starts going on the path I would think. Rodney says, are there 5 coaches in the league you'd rather have than Doc Rivers, though, without considering Popovich or maybe Rick Carlisle, because he'll never be moved? Well, Popovich needs to retire. I think Popovich is past his prime. I think it's very obvious that the Spurs and his success is pretty much run its course. You know, Popovich had a lot of success with Hall of Famers like Tim Duncan and potentially Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker and David Robinson, Defensive Player of the Year candidate, and Bruce Bowen, Finals MVP Kawhi Leonard. He had a lot of success with superstar players. Rick Carlisle, outside of the year the Mavs won the NBA title, has not been out of the first round of the playoffs in the last 10 years. Aside from the 1 year they won the NBA championship, thanks to Dirk Nowitzki and JJ Barea, of all people. So is Rick Carlisle really that good of a coach? Seriously, is he really that good of a coach? If he can get out of the first round. Doc Rivers gets out of the first round. I guess you get to the second round and maybe in the conference finals. I think the problem is that when we talk about who the best coach is in the league, you can nitpick every coach. Frank Vogel won the NBA title last year. Couldn't get out of the first round this year. So is he a good coach or a bad coach? Doc Rivers has taken 4 different franchises to the postseason. Is he a good coach or a bad coach? I'm just saying that I think that when we talk about who the best coaches are, we forget there are other factors that go into it. And that's where Kyle followed up. And I love that Kyle brought this up. Because Kyle, you're really touching a spot for me. Because this is something I've always like to talk about with people when it comes to the sports. Kyle Dubray says on YouTube, Doc Rivers won 1 NBA championship with 3 Hall of Famers. The Sixers have 2 All-Stars and MVP candidate. Here's the problem. You can't name me a coach who didn't win without Hall of Famers. None. There is none. In the last 35, 40 years, the last team that you can go back to were the Seattle Supersonics and the Washington Bullets in the late 1970s, who had just mediocre beyond mediocre rosters in the NBA, who won titles. Otherwise, every team's got Hall of Famers. You can't win in this league without star players. We act like the coach is this end-all, be-all at times. This isn't football. This isn't college basketball. This isn't the manager calling in the wrong relief pitcher like Jim Fregosi in 93 World Series. No, this is basketball where LeBron James can walk onto any team. Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant. They can walk onto any team in the league and they're a contender. So, of course, Doc Rivers won with 3 Hall of Famers because you only win with Hall of Famers. People forget Rasheed Wallace is probably going to get to the Basketball Hall of Fame. So the Pistons will have probably Chauncey Billups and Rasheed Wallace in the Hall of Fame. Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, Kawhi Leonard, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant. All these guys are going to the Hall of Fame. Hakeem Olajuwon, Hall of Famer. Isaiah Thomas, Hall of Famer. You see a pattern? You can't win without Hall of Famers. We got to stop having these caveats for these coaches and start accepting the reality that maybe the coach is not as important as we think they are. Steve Nash made a comment, and he said that's about connectivity. He's not there for X's and O's. He's there for connectivity. That's why Steve Kerr was hired. That's why Mark Jackson was fired. People always ask, why has Mark Jackson not been hired for a job? I think it's very convenient that we know why. Because Mark Jackson has not gotten the job because he lacked connectivity. He had a falling out with ownership and the GM. He lost some of the players in the locker room. And now he has a bad rap around the league because of it. There's a opinion around the NBA, whether justified or not, that Mark Jackson is hard to work with. Dave Yeager is going to have trouble getting an NBA coaching job again because he's been hard to work with. He clashed with the front office in Memphis. He literally almost fought the assistant GM in Sacramento. He can't get along with certain people. So, Kyle, you may not be a fan of Doc Rivers. You may not like him. You may not prefer him. But at the end of the day, the coach only gets you so far. Tom Thibodeau was the coach of the year. But because he didn't have a superstar, his team was DOA in the postseason. They were dead on arrival. They had no chance. They did not have a player to counter Trae Young. Because you saw that their best player, Julius Randle, came up very small multiple games in that series. When Tom Thibodeau had the most success that he did as an NBA head coach, he had MVP Derrick Rose. He had Defensive Player of the Year candidate Joakim Noah. He had super high caliber players. You're not winning if you're hoping that Emmanuel quickly gives you points. Josh Hennig here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, I'll get to more of your comments on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter in just a minute. We'll get to another text. Dan EHT chimes in at 609-403-0973. Says, Sixers have to punch the Hawks in the mouth, be physical, and let them know it's our house. Or it's not in our house. Or I misread that, but I think I interpolated what Dan was saying. The point is, I get it, Dan. You want to be physical to a point, though. I think the Sixers need to play more fundamental basketball. They played garbage basketball for about 15 minutes. It was absolutely disgusting how they played basketball at times in that game. I just thought that, you know what? I just didn't like that they just couldn't kick themselves out of it. And I think that at some point the players have to, smack themselves in the face, not literally, but figuratively, and be like, hey, guys, wake up. We're playing like garbage. Now, Kyle Dubray brings up Jason Kidd, as well as another coach who's out there. Jason Kidd, I think, is a very strange situation because he probably should have never gotten the Nets job. He forced his way out of that job to go get the Milwaukee job. Then they forced him out of Milwaukee, even though Giannis wanted Kidd to be his head coach, because Kidd had a philosophical disagreement with the front office. And then he was going to be a candidate for the Portland job. And then he pulls his name out of the running. I don't know what's going on with Jason Kidd. I feel like if he was in the right situation, he would have success. Mark Jackson, I think he's got a bad reputation. Whether you want to say it's because he's religious, whether it's because he forces his basketball ideology on people, whatever it is, it is what it is. I think that he's just got a bad reputation around the league. Jersey P asked about Phil Jackson. Here's the problem with Phil. On one hand, you could say Phil got the most out of Michael Jordan. He got the most out of Kobe Bryant than any other coach. But you could also say that Phil walked into customized situations. That he walked into situations where he didn't have to build the team. He didn't have to format it. He didn't have to go through tough times. He walked in the championship caliber rosters. Guys like Pat Riley had to build and go through rebuilds and go through roster overhauls. Guys like Larry Brown jumped around from team to team to team to team and finally won a championship. So you could argue that Phil Jackson might be a coach who had success through a little bit of convenience. All right, thanks, Paul Hudrick, for joining the show. We had way more comments I could get to, so I appreciate all you guys chiming in. Hopefully we chime in again tomorrow on Sports Game Night on 97.3 ESPN.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff. Learn more, live better.
We've all heard this before. Maintain an attitude of gratitude. While that may sound like a cliche, studies show that when we practice gratitude, it's easier to find joy, inner strength, and overcome stress. But in these unusual times, it can be challenging. Gratitude takes practice just like any other skill. Here are some ways to cultivate gratitude on a regular basis. Write a thank you note. You can make yourself happier and nurture your relationship with another person. Keep a gratitude journal. Make it a habit to write down or share your thoughts about your everyday blessings. Stay physically active and meditate. Mindful meditation involves focusing on the present moment without judgment. When we express gratitude, our brain releases dopamine and serotonin, two elements that enhance our mood, making us feel happy from the inside. So today, be sure to practice an attitude of gratitude.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff, empowering you to live a healthier life.
You asked for it. You got it. Fast Track Checkout at either Matt Blatt Kia location. Buy it your way. Complete your purchase online or have us deliver it during the Trade Up to a Kia sales event at Matt Blatt Kia in Egg Harbor Township or Tom's River. 0 money down and 0% financing for up to 60 months on every 2021 Kia Soul, Sportage, or Forte. Plus, we need your trade. Even if you owe thousands more than it's worth, get out of that old car you hate with 0 down payment and 0% APR financing